Deku, let's talk. Izuku's blood ran cold. Oh god, he's going to kill me. Is this about the exam? Bakugo approached Izuku, taking slow and deliberate steps. The exam. It is. Izuku's face contorted with panic. I saw the results from the practical. The blonde boy stopped only a foot away from Izuku and whispered, his face shadowed by the poor street lighting, how did you cheat? Izuku's terrified expression gave way to one of confusion. Huh? Cheat? A car drove by, its headlights momentarily lightening Bakugo's face. Needless to say, whatever joy Izuku felt about his day went out the window. I said, how the fuck did you cheat? Bakugo seized Izuku's jacket and pushed him against a wall, his hands ominously smoking. There's no goddamn way a quirkless loser like you could have beaten my score. Izuku started panicking again and he waved his hands. No, wait Kaken. I didn't cheat, I swear. I only beat a couple of robots. You saw I only had 18 villain points. And even then, most of those were because one of their missile launchers went haywire. Really, I didn't do that well compared to you. If it wasn't for rescue points, I wouldn't have even gotten in. I didn't try to beat your score, I swear. Bakugo's hands stopped smoking, implying he was somewhat happier about the situation, but his hold didn't ease up. Damn it, damn it. I don't give a fuck how many of what you got. I was supposed to be the only one who got in from our school. Me. He looked down and started shaking. My plans, ruined. All because of you. You just love shoving your nose where it don't belong, don't cha? Bakugo's mind flashed back to when he fell into a creek as a child. He remembered how he'd laughed it off, but Deku approached him with an outstretched hand and a look. Those eyes, so full of pity. For me. And again with that villain. Those stupid eyes. Even now. Bakugo looked up and sure enough, Deku's eyes were filled with fear, panic, but also a little bit of pity and concern. Is he okay? I know his ego is bigger than Empty Lady, but this is worse than normal. I guess he really puts a lot of pressure on himself to be the best. But Bakugo saw it another way. Deku. Quirkless Deku, feels bad for me. Worries about me. Fuck that. Izuku yelped as Bakugo's grip tightened and his eyes flared. Listen Deku, I'm gonna be the #1 hero someday, so stop looking at me like that and stop getting in my fucking way. He threw Izuku to the ground and stormed off in a huff. Don't let me see you at UA, got it? Or better yet, just drop out altogether. Not like a quirkless Deku could ever be a real hero. Bakugo started walking back home, only to stop dead when Izuku shouted, Kaken. Izuku was standing back up, fists clenched tightly. But more impressively, he was staring his childhood friend dead on, mouth set in a determined line. Someone told me that I could be a hero. It's because of them that I've gotten this far. Izuku looked at his clenched right fist and remembered that punch he delivered against the zero-pointer. He looked back at Bakugo and exclaimed, I can't let them down now. I have to keep going, whether you want me to or not. Bakugo stood in stunned silence before continuing his walk home. Izuku kept up his brave facade until his friend turned the corner and vanished from sight, at which point he promptly deflated. Oh wow. I can't believe I stood up to Kaken. I guess today was pretty good after all. Meanwhile, Bakugo was lost in thought. Since when did Deku get the balls to talk back? Ha! What a prick. Then he flashed back to when Izuku offered him that hand up when they were kids or when he shielded Bakugo's body from the sludge villain's attacks. And then he reflected on what he said to Izuku earlier that fateful day. Maybe you'll be lucky and be reborn with a quirk in your next life. Bakugo sighed, looked at his feet. Shit. 2 weeks later. You have your pocket tissues? Yeah. Izuku knelt down to his laces. And your handkerchief? Your hanky? Yeah, Mom. I gotta hurry or I'll be late. Izuku finished tying his shoes, smoothed out his uniform, and opened the door. Oh, and Izuku. Exasperated, Izuku turned from the doorframe and whined, what? Inko just smiled through glossy eyes, you're really cool. Taken aback, Izuku smiled gratefully, I'll see you later. From his home, it was about 40 minutes by train to UA. The entire ride, he could feel himself shaking, the reality of his situation slowly dawning on him. I know I've been before to see Recovery Girl, but I'm about to attend the top hero school in the country. Standing in front of the gates certainly felt different this time around. No more waiting for All Might to secure a visitor's badge. Armed with his student ID, that most mighty of weapons, Izuku strolled through the gates with confidence. Which, for him, means that he didn't trip, cry, fall, spontaneously combust, blush, sweat, die, cry, mutter, or cry. Okay, he did tear up a little bit. This campus is massive. Okay, Class 1A, where are you? Izuku strolled around the hallways of one of the towers, doing his best to follow the signs before he came face to face with a door fitting the campus's size. It's huge. But this says 1A on it. He took a deep breath. Okay. The rest of your life begins right now. He opened the door. I just hope Kakin and that scary guy from the exam aren't in my class. Or that one French guy. Get your feet off of that desk. That's disrespectful to the carpenters who slaved over its craftsmanship and to our elders who learned from there. Well, that's only 1 out of 3. I can handle that. From inside the classroom, Izuku vaguely heard someone twinkle, isn't my belt so magnifique? Okay, 66.7% isn't bad. Besides, those two are mild compared to. Humph. You talk funny. Where you from, extra? Oh, crap. The tall boy with glasses stood up proudly to answer Bakugo, my name is Tenya Ida. I attended Somei Academy for junior high. But my family and I are originally Fr-. Bakugo grinned maliciously, oh, a Somei kid? Didn't realize you were an elite. Maybe I should just blow you away right now and save myself the trouble later. The tall boy stepped back, completely aghast, what? Are you sure you're trying to be a hero? Then he noticed Izuku standing, or more accurately, shaking, by the entrance. Oh, it's you. He walked over in a fashion that was also somehow running and gave a slight bow. I know we met once before, but I am pleased to make your acquaintance again. My name is Dash. Izuku sweat a little bit, but bowed in return. Oh, I already heard. My name's Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you too, Ida. Bakugo narrowed his eyes, but looked away without giving much acknowledgement. Some of the people in the classroom who overheard turned towards him now. Wait, Izuku Midoriya. Didn't he get the top score on the practical? Someone with spiky blonde hair with a black streak asked. A girl with pink hair and skin and 2 angled horns replied, oh, yeah. I think you're right. Man, with a point total like that, I bet he's got a crazy strong quirk. A student with spiked red hair looked like he was about to cry, despite the massive smile on his face. Wow. I bet he's so manly. In the back of the classroom, a kid with evenly split red and white hair, heterochromia, and a large pink scar over his left eye glanced up. He zeroed in on his classmate's target of conversation and narrowed his eyes. Top score, huh? Ida suddenly slammed his fist on his other hand, like a judge's gavel. Midoriya, you easily ascertained the true purpose of the exam, didn't you? Yet I judged you harshly beforehand. How foolish of me. Please, accept my humble apologies, for you are certainly the superior candidate. Izuku waved his hands frantically, and no, I didn't ascertain anything, I promise. I know he's complimenting me, but he's so intense that I still feel scared. Oh, it's Izuku. Izuku turned and nearly turned into a tomato. Uraraka. First name basis. Uraraka smiled, highlighting her natural blush. Wow. I was hoping you'd get in, and then I saw your name at the top of the chart and I was like, wow. He looked away with a sheepish smile. Oh, well, I should really be thanking you since you went to talk to President Mike and all. She cocked her head. Huh. How'd you know about that? His face lost all color. Crap. Luckily, a distraction came in the form of a giant caterpillar. If you're here to socialize, you should just leave. This is the hero course at UA, not some public high school in Tokyo. Everyone slowly turned to face the interruption, looks of confusion, fear, a bit of interest plaguing their expressions. The caterpillar sighed and began to unzip itself, revealing a tall, lanky man in a large sleeping bag. It took you a whole 8 seconds to quiet down. Time is precious, and you just wasted mine. You guys aren't too bright, are you? Izuku turned his head slightly. This guy, he looks familiar, but I can't remember from where. The mystery man pulled out a juice box and in one mighty gulp, finished it and threw it away. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Nice to meet you. The yellow-haired kid from earlier chuckled and whispered, I don't think he means that. Izuku's brow furrowed. If he's our homeroom teacher, then he must be a pro hero. But I don't remember seeing him on TV or anything. I'll have to check my journals later to be sure. Aizawa reached inside his sleeping bag and pulled out a blue uniform with white lettering and red trim. Put these on and meet me out on the practice field. All Might peered over the class files, searching for the first sign of young Midoriya's name. There. Let's see, Class 1A, nice. Young Uraraka is in there too. I'm sure they'll get along well. Young Bakugo, though, might be trouble based on young Midoriya's anecdotes. But the homeroom teacher is. All Might's eyes widened and he nearly spat blood. Oh shit. Aizawa cracked his neck. Alright. Since you're all finally here, we can start the quirk apprehension test. The class gathered at the training field, all sweat dropped. Uraraka protested. What? A test on the first day? What about orientation and the school assembly and dash? Aizawa cut her off. UA gives me a lot of freedom on how to teach. If you want to waste your time on petty stuff like that, feel free to go now. I'll fill out your expulsion form in the meantime. Uraraka immediately went quiet and even stepped back. Izuku's sweat dropped. So intimidating. Aizawa continued, you all had to do physicals and fitness tests in junior high, but you could never use your quirks. Just another example of the subpar government at work. But if I'm going to teach you anything, I need to know where you're all at right now. So you're going to use your quirks freely to complete all these tests. He looked at his clipboard. Bakugo, you had the most villain points on the practical by a long shot. I want you to throw this as far as you can. Aizawa handed Bakugo a softball with a band of sensors embedded around it. Bakugo wordlessly took the ball and walked to the throwing circle. He wound up and roared as he threw it with a literal bang. Die. Izuku paled. Die. The ball rocketed through the air and out of sight, the only indication it landed being a beep on Aizawa's monitoring device. He held it out. See that? That's a hero score. A short kid with purple balls protruding from his head nearly shrieked, 705.2 meters. That's insane. The pink girl from earlier beamed, wow, this kinda looks fun. A guy with black hair, a permanent grin, and cylinders on his arm laughed, and we get to use our quirks completely. This'll be a breeze. Aizawa grinned, but it made the room feel colder. Fun? A breeze? Since you're already taking this so lightly, let's raise the stakes. Lowest score is expelled. Capice? I, and the rest of this school, are going to beat you down until you can barely move, all to make you better heroes. If you can't withstand that, you're out. That's what it means to go plus ultra. Everyone just stood in shock, save for Bakugo, the half-and-half boy from earlier, and a mature-looking woman with spiky black hair. Aizawa then listed off the events, and with each pronouncement, Izuku felt his spirits fall. This is bad. One for All is basically a glass cannon right now, and the Sharingan's gonna be useless on most of these. Maybe it'll help on the long jump for technique or ball toss for the angle of my throw, but that's not gonna mean anything compared to what some of these guys can do. I just need to power through on my own abilities. If only it were that simple. The 50-meter sprint went decently, but Izuku still placed 10th, right behind some huge guy that inhaled a cinnamon roll before running so hard he cracked the ground. But that still wasn't as weird as the tall girl, who pulled a skateboard from under her shirt and rode that to a comfortable 5.65-second time. I have so many questions I want to ask her. He felt the reflexive urge to grab his notebook. For the grip strength test, he only managed 56 kilograms of pressure. While in the top 10 again, his score was dwarfed by the multi-limbed man's score of 540 kilograms. Okay, I'm not doing bad, but I'm not doing great either. Maybe I can raise my score now, though. Sharingan. Izuku whispered. He felt his quirk activate and he started observing the others who went before him. Maybe I can learn something from the others, he muttered while tracing their movements. I can't shoot a laser beam, so that's a no-go. Also can't create explosions, so can't copy that. Oh. The pink-haired girl walked up to the starting line. If I remember, she did really well in the 50-meter dash. She also looks athletic. Maybe I can find something out from her. He watched her lead up and jump carefully, even paying close attention to her form in mid-air and her landing. She's faster than me on the run up to the jump point, but I should actually be able to push off harder than her. And none of her movements were too out of my ability, so I can do this. I could even spot the ideal location to jump from, so I could surpass her distance, too. Oh, Is that your quirk, Izuku? Uraraka asked loudly while moving much too close, observing his red eyes. Immediately, much of the class turned towards him, interested in the top candidate's quirk. Luckily, the surprise made Izuku reflexively deactivate his quirk, WA. She's so close to me. And everyone keeps trying to measure me up. And I could honestly go without Kaken blowing up at me again. Wait, did I ever even tell him I had a quirk? On cue, Bakugo also looked at Midoriya, albeit more so because he was confused about what drugs Uraraka was taking. Deku's quirkless, dumbass. Izuku's sweat dropped. No, I did not. Ida raised an eyebrow. What are you talking about, Bakugo? Did you not hear about Midoriya's feat against the zero-pointer in the exam? What are you talking about, extra? Before the argument could progress, Aizawa interrupted. Midoriya, you're up. Izuku walked up to the line and activated his Sharingan while lining up his jump. Well, nothing to do except pray he doesn't see them. I don't need to get emasculated on my first day at school. He inhaled deeply before taking off at a sprint and leaping at the perfect moment. He soared through the air with perfect form, and even landed gracefully. He looked at the ruler next to the sand pit where he landed and smiled. Yes. Not too bad. I'm definitely in the top 5. He wasn't. The guy with multiple limbs/tentacles used the membranes connecting his arms to glide over the pit with surprising grace for someone so large. The large guy ate a brownie this time and jumped over the pit entirely. The person with the ice quirk just created an ice bridge and walked over the pit. Crap. I know I'm passing, but... Izuku looked at Bakugo, who was already glaring at him. He reflexively stepped back, but maintained eye contact, despite the trembling in his hands and the sweat pooling down his brow. Just don't look away. Remember, you have 2 quirks now. You're at UA now, so don't be afraid to stare back at him. This is a weird pep talk. The repeated side steps went about as well as Izuku could have hoped. Despite trying to mimic the pink girl again, he ended up getting dizzy and falling on his butt, earning the second worst score, only above the multi-limbed guy who basically just shuffled from side to side like an awkward middle school dance. Sucks that he's so big, he basically straddled the area that Aizawa-sensei gave us. The ball throwing was where Izuku's nerves got the better of him, especially after seeing Uraraka throw an infinity. Everyone has at least one incredible score, and after my last event, I need all the points I can get. Even if it breaks my arm, I need to do this. So when Izuku got called to the plate, he immediately whispered, Sharingan, and started charging up one for all. Uraraka whispered, Izuku's not doing so well, is he? At least compared to what his score was. Ida commented, yes, but I'm very intrigued to see Midoriya's performance in this event given the power he displayed in that attack against the arena trap. Although it did damage him severely, so perhaps he has been saving that strength. Bakugo just stared at the two in complete disbelief. Please. Deku only passed cause of those stupid rescue points. He doesn't have what it takes to pass this test. Meanwhile, Izuku was marveling at himself. Wow. I can actually see my own life force getting brighter and brighter with my Sharingan as I charge one for all. He pulled his hand back and started the wind up. The ideal angle for distance is 45 degrees, so I need to move my hand in exactly this way to get that done. Izuku visualized his throw and with his natural quirk's ability, executed it. Egg in the microwave, shorten the cook time, lower the wattage. His arm rippled with red and green lines, electricity crackling through his veins. I can feel it. It's not as bad as before. However, right as he threw the ball, he felt the floodgates open and the full force of his second quirk rushed into his arm. Crap, Izuku thought as he threw the ball. 46 meters. His face dropped. What? No way. Bakugo smirked and turned to Ida, see? Quirkless Deku. However, Aizawa settled the debate then and there by wrapping his scarf around Izuku and pulling him closer. I erased your quirk. Izuku noticed his teacher's eyes were glowing red and his hair was standing up. And that with the scarf unfurled, Izuku saw that Aizawa had a pair of yellow goggles around his neck. Then it clicked, why your eraser head? An underground hero. Izuku exclaimed, surprised at the development. While his classmates mumbled about the revelation, Aizawa spoke loudly and harshly, you know why I called for Bakugo to do the demonstration and not you? Because if it were up to me, you'd never have gotten the top score. Izuku paled, huh? Aizawa continued, your perception and analysis against the small fries was impressive, sure, but half of your villain points were from dumb luck and a glitchy robot. You didn't even use your quirk. If it were up to me, you wouldn't have gotten those 9 points. And you destroyed that giant robot, sure. But in the process, you not only destroyed a building, but you trashed your arm. If Uraraka hadn't saved you, you'd probably have died or messed up your body further with your quirk. I don't need amateurs who can't control their quirks in my class. Bakugu's eyes narrowed with each word. Is he seriously saying that Deku has a quirk? Has he been lying to me all these years? Aizawa procured another ball and handed it to Izuku, his eyes returning to normal as his hair set and he rewound his scarf. You can try once more. Go all out and destroy your chances in the next 3 events or hold back and not get a single hero level score. Izuku was left stunned and silent. Ida and Uraraka watched solemnly. The latter spoke first, looks like Aizawa-sensei really tore into Izuku. I hope he figures something out. Ida nodded, if Midoriya is unable to somehow live up to Aizawa-sensei's expectations for this event, I fear that he may face severe consequences. If he can't control his quirk, though, it might be best if he didn't progress any further, as harsh as it sounds. Everyone turned to look at the speaker, the tall girl with the spiky ponytail. In this line of work, you can't rely on others to pick up your slack. You need to be a self-sufficient hero on your own. And if using his quirk once really damaged him as much as Aizawa-sensei says it did, then he might simply not be able to be a hero. Izuku felt his heart sink as he overheard his new classmates speak. What do I do? I wasn't able to pump the brakes on One for All on my last throw, but if I don't use it, I'll be the only student without at least one crazy high score. Sharingan. Izuku muttered as he began charging One for All, watching how the power grew in his right arm. I can literally see it with my Sharingan. It's like electricity. Wait a minute, what if I use the Sharingan to visually gauge how much I put into One for All? Izuku concentrated on pulling back his power, feeling the energy decrease in intensity, as well as seeing the glow of his arm drop in luminosity. Okay, that looks good. The bright light's only about half as much as it used to be. And maybe, to minimize the damage, just in case. He wound up and tossed the ball with all his might. But the second the ball was about to leave his grasp, he shifted all of One for All into his hand and roared, smash. The softball shot off into the sky, producing small airbursts with its incredible speed. Izuku smiled, but immediately clutched his hand, which was slightly red and appeared a little misshapen. Damn it. 50% is still way too much. I wanted to put in all into my index finger, but using the Sharingan to adjust my trajectory made it too hard to also shift One for All at the same time. But I can tell, this isn't nearly as bad as before. I have a few fractures, but, Aizawa-sensei. Aizawa turned from the score of 535.5 meters and looked at his student, who wore a pleased grin. I can still move. He clenched his fist slightly to prove it. The underground hero just stared at the kid for a while. He localized the power into his hand instead of his arm. Furthermore, it doesn't look bloody or limp like it did against the arena trap. He not only reduced the area of damage, but he managed to regulate his power on the fly. This kid. Aizawa just grinned. Uraraka cheered while Ida nodded repeatedly. Even the tall girl seemed slightly taken aback. Huh. Never mind then. Bakugu, however, looked someone just told him his puppy died, as they killed it in front of him. Deku has a quirk. Quirkless Deku has a quirk. Then Izuku turned back to the students and Bakugu saw those red eyes, the tomo still spinning. DKU. Bakugu shot off towards his classmate, blinded by his rage/insecurities. What? You thought your quirk was so cool that you kept it hidden? Is that it? I don't need your PJH. Bakugu suddenly felt the familiar heat in his palms vanish as several strands of suspiciously hard cloth wrapped around his body, locking him in place. Aizawa's glowing eyes glared, cut it out. Another outburst like that and you're expelled. Got it? He then released Bakugu and deactivated his quirk, dropping some liquid into his eyes. You kids are gonna be the death of me, my quirk gives me serious dry eye. But his quirk is so cool, everyone's sweat dropped at the revelation of his weakness. Bakugu glared at Izuku again but turned away in a huff. Izuku looked back, his heart still racing from when he thought Bakugu was gonna flatten him. Aizawa sighed, now that that's done, let's keep going. Yaoyorozu, can you make a splint for Midoriya? The tall girl, Yaoyorozu, nodded before pulling a hand brace out from under her shirt. She walked over to Izuku and sternly asked, "Would you like some help putting it on?" Izuku's face was redder than his eyes due to her close proximity, but he managed to squeak, "Why yes, please." Choosing to ignore his timid behavior, she softly wrapped the brace around his right hand and secured it snugly. All done. Izuku examined the splint. Wow. Thank you, Yaoyorozu. She gave a soft smile, breaking her serious facade. Of course. As classmates, it's important we support each other. And I might have spoken too harshly. Then she walked back to the crowd, loosely followed by Izuku. Midoriya, that result was most impressive. Ida pronounced, chopping his hands rapidly. Uraraka bubbly nodded, encroaching on her new friend's space. Yeah, that was so cool. You were all smash, and then the ball went whoosh and dash. Izuku zoned out the second she started talking and started blushing again. I need to stop associating with pretty girls. It just doesn't end well for me. In the background, behind a nearby building, All Might watched the scene with a smile. I was worried about you, young Midoriya, but wow, do you love crushing my expectations? When did you become so cool? All Might also noticed his pupil's red face and the Uraraka's poor awareness of personal space. And popular with the ladies, too. You never cease to amaze me. The rest of the events fared moderately well for Izuku. The seated toe touch was easy since he did so much agility training while learning to use his Sharingan. He scored 5th, behind Yaoyorozu, the boy with the tail. Izuku suspected it was due to his martial arts background based on how he keyed every time he did anything, the frog girl, and the same pink girl he copied so much. He actually excelled at the sit-ups, managing to finally place in the top 3, only behind Yaoyorozu and the guy that looked like he was split in half. The pull-ups, however, were a different story. Despite the brace, he couldn't use his right hand at all and he had to do the exercise with one arm. He only beat out the kid with purple balls on his head after totally exhausting himself. Finally, the endurance run came around and Izuku was able to reclaim his momentum by placing 5th. If my hand wasn't throbbing so much, I probably could have done a lot more. I wasn't even that tired. At the end, Aizawa gathered everyone and showed the results on a screen. Izuku feared the worst, but nearly sobbed when he saw his name in 12th place. I made it. But Kaken got 3rd, damn it, I'm still behind him. A high-pitched shriek interrupted Izuku's giddiness, I'm gonna be expelled. And I haven't even copped a feel yet. Izuku's sweat dropped at the purple ball-haired kid's choice of words, I guess that's my neta. Ida nodded vigorously, how tragic to be expelled on his very first day of high school. Truly, UA earns its title as the premier hero course. By the way, I lied about the whole expulsion thing. After sending off his, justifiably, peeved class to change, and Midoriya to recovery girl afterwards, Aizawa walked back to the homeroom, only to hear a familiar, and his opinion, annoying, laugh. Ha ha ha. Aizawa, you said the expulsion threat was just a trick, but April Fool's was last week. Aizawa sighed, what do you want, All Might? All Might's sweat dropped at the rude reception, but continued, you've expelled over 100 students in your career at this school. So pray tell, why the sudden change in modus operandi? Eraserhead shrugged, the only one I actually would have expelled was Midoriya, but he managed to improve my opinion of him. Slightly. Ha. Then you see it, too. Young Midoriya's potential is overflowing. Aizawa's eyes narrowed, too. All Might immediately sweat dropped, it's just that he only recently learned he had a quirk, so I hear, and to see him improve so quickly is rather impressive, no? Ha. Nailed it. All Might, you're too smooth. Something's up, whatever. If that's true, then I'll admit I had him pegged wrong. And I won't say he's completely devoid of potential, but regardless of his scores, he's still a glass cannon. And I won't humor anybody like that. The only thing crueler than stomping out a dream early is letting it continue too long. His mind flashed to a broken body under the rubble of an overpass. I won't accept anything like that again. Later that day. Midoriya. Is your hand healed? Ida called as they crossed the UA gates to go home. Izuku turned and smiled, oh, Ida. Yeah, recovery girl healed it in a few seconds, flat. I just have to keep the brace Yaoyorozu made for the rest of the day and I should be good as new. Ida smiled, good. I'm pleased to hear that you weren't permanently injured. Such a tragedy on your first would only serve to sour your high school experience. Izuku laughed sheepishly. I thought Ito was kinda mean and scary, but he's just really genuine and earnest. I can appreciate that. Hey, Deku. Izuku nearly vomited as he turned in a panic. Keikaken. His voice sounds way higher than it used to, and more feminine, and Balkmir, that wasn't Kaken. As luck would have it, it was just Uraraka, huh? Kaken. Isn't that your name for Bakugo? Izuku chuckled sheepishly. Why yeah. Sorry, but he's really the only one who calls me Deku, so I thought it was him. Huh, why Deku? Is that some sort of inside joke? WL, it's sort of a different way to read the kanji for my name and it means, useless, so. Uraraka flinched. Oh. I thought that was like a friendly nickname or something. Sorry about that. What part of our interaction seemed friendly? Izuku's sweat dropped. But then she bounced up and grinned, but I kinda like the sound of it, you know? Sounds like Dikairu. Has a real, never give up, kind of vibe, you know? You can call me DKU. Izuku's cheeks flared up and a smile ripped across his face. I feel reborn. Ida gasped. Midoriya. You shouldn't give in to peer pressure so quickly. Izuku buried his face in his hands and muttered, I don't know what's happening anymore. There's so many people talking to me right now. And that was the moment Izuku realized he had friends. The next day seemed almost insulting compared to the first one. Instead of an emotionally and physically grueling exam, the students of Class 1A had to endure the very worst thing imaginable to a high school student, learning. Even present Mike, with his infectious enthusiasm and perma-grin, couldn't bring life to A Midsummer Night's Dream. Izuku certainly wasn't helped by the fact that Mineta, who sat behind him, kept whispering how awesome it was that the R-rated hero, Midnight, was their biology teacher. Seriously, Midoriya. Just imagine how hot it'll be when she covers meiosis. Mineta shuddered in delight, leaving one very flustered Greenette contemplating his life choices. But after lunch, everyone in the class was excited because their schedule listed, in bolded lettering, battle training. And the teacher for that day's session was, coming through the door like a normal person. All Might, clad in his Silver Age costume complete with flapping and entirely useless cape, appeared in a flash, leaning into the classroom while gripping the doorframe behind him for support. There was a moment of stunned silence before the class erupted into cheers. All Might Sensei. You're so cool and manly. The spiky-haired boy exclaimed. The twinkling boy sparkled, ooh. Monsieur All Might Sensei's cape is au magnifique. And despite having seen All Might almost daily for a year, even Izuku was swept up by the class's fervor. All Might Sensei. I'm your biggest fan. All Might let out a booming laugh, haha. I'm glad to see that you're all excited. I'm certainly excited myself to be your teacher, so let's all get along. But how about we just jump right into it? All Might pressed a button on the teacher's desk, causing a section of the left wall to extend outwards, revealing 4 columns of 5 suitcases, each numbered 1 through 20. These are the costumes you specifically requested. We had our support company use the information you provided and what we found from the Quark registry build you the perfect outfits. Please put them on and meet me on ground beta. While everyone else swarmed their suitcases, eager to see their very own super suits, Izuku stayed at his desk to open his backpack first and pull out an old grocery bag, carefully tied so as not to free the precious cargo inside. Then he gathered his suitcase and went to the locker room. This represents my mom's faith in me. I can't wear anything else. So with that, Izuku finished putting on his costume, featuring his mother's homemade jumpsuit and the support company's mask and padding, and walked out with his classmates, while All Might whistled and complimented them, nice. You all look like proper heroes. Then he noticed Izuku's mouth guard and rabbit ears, so obvious. But the light green and white combo is an interesting choice. He cleared his throat. Anyways, we'll be conducting battle trials in teams of 2. One group will play the role of heroes, while the other will play as villains. All Might pulled out a cheat sheet, much to everyone's amusement, ahem. The scenario is that the villains have a nuclear warhead somewhere in the building to my left. The heroes have to infiltrate the building and secure the weapon and/or capture the villains. The villains will receive a 5-minute head start while the heroes get 15 minutes to complete their objective. The symbol of peace then pulled out his phone. I've already used a random number generator to assign teams. They are as follows: Team A, Izuku Midoriya and Ochako Uraraka. Uraraka cheered and got too close to Izuku, again, yay. We're on the same team. Must be fate. Izuku looked away with a wicked blush but nodded. Team B, Shoto Todoroki and Mizo Shoji. Team C, Minoru Mineta and Momo Yaoyorozu. Team D, Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida. Bakugo raised an eyebrow. Who? Ida just gasped, affronted. Team E, Mina Ashido and Yuga Aoyama. Team F, Rikido Sato and Koji Koda. Team G, Jiro Kyoka and Denki Kaminari. Team H, Fumikage Tokoyami and Tsuyu Azui. Team I, Masahiro Ojiro and Toru Hagakure. Team J, Ejiro Kirishima and Hantashiro. All Might took a deep breath. That was a lot. And these lottery machines will decide the matchups. All Might gestured to two lottery ball drawing machines labeled Hero and Villain, respectively. Izuku started sweating. Just not Kaken's team. Anything but Kaken's team. He picked out the first set. Looks like round 1 is Team A versus Team D. Oh, shit, sorry, young Midoriya. Izuku nearly fainted. Izuku tapped his hand nervously, muttering so furiously, the author couldn't even condense it into written language. Deku? Uraraka asked, smiling despite the sweat drop, you okay? Izuku broke out of his stupor and chuckled sheepishly, sorry about that. I guess I'm just nervous about facing Kaken. Uraraka nodded understandingly, I guess I can't blame you. He bullied you, right? He nodded slowly, but smiled regardless, yeah. I've always been behind him. Always scared of standing in his way. His quirk is crazy strong, and his battle instincts are probably the best in the year. But beyond that, he's just the most driven person I've ever met. I think about how powerful he is and how focused he is, I just can't help but feel inspired. Izuku turned to Uraraka with a thrilled grin, that's why today, I don't want to lose. Then he blushed, oh. Sorry to put that all on you. No, it's good. We're a team after all. Uraraka grinned back at him, so it's like a fated battle between men? What? She just laughed at his meek reaction, anyways, you have any ideas on what we can do? Izuku nodded and whipped out his trusty notebook, these are the notes I took on Kaken throughout the years. And in the back, I have a few notes on Ida from watching him during Aizawa-sensei's exam. Uraraka smiled at first, but quickly paled when she realized that Ida's few notes amounted to several pages more stuffed than her freezer during a mochi sale. So thorough. Uraraka, she looked up at her partner, your quirk cancels out gravity, right? Uraraka nodded, yeah. If I touch something with my fingertips, I can make it weightless. But I can really only lift 3 tons. Izuku's sweat dropped. That's a lot. Well, I was thinking that since Ida's quirk is all about speed and mobility, if you're able to use your quirk on him, we'd get a major advantage. Yeah, that would work. But what about you, Deku? What does your quirk do exactly? I haven't prepared for this. I can't just say I have 2 quirks. Oh. I have enhanced perception and strength and stuff. Oh, and I can trace people's movements and predict what they're going to do. Please buy it, please buy it, please buy it. Uraraka smiled curiously, oh wow. So your eyes changing color is just a part of that? She bought it, Izuku nodded, but I can only use it for about 8 minutes straight, so I'll need to ration it out. And then I get hurt when I try to use my super strength. Uraraka scratched her head, and your quirk's so strong that you might accidentally damage the building or the bomb and that wouldn't be good. Especially since we're supposed to pretend like we're in a real city. I guess we should try to keep fighting to the higher floors to avoid destroying the foundation below. Izuku raised an eyebrow, wow, Uraraka. You seem pretty knowledgeable about this kind of stuff. She scratched her head, well, my parents are construction workers so I kinda learned a couple of things along the way. Anyways, our time's almost up so let's get ready. She started bouncing excitedly near Izuku, which wasn't helping the poor boy given the, design of her bodysuit. Hero team, you may enter. 15 minutes on the clock, staring now. All Might proclaimed from the viewing center. Izuku immediately called, Sharingan. His eyes lit up and the familiar slowdown effect appeared, I can see them on the 5th floor. Uraraka awed, wow. You can see through walls, too. That's incredible. Izuku blushed and chuckled while turning off his Sharingan, just living things. Anyways, you think you can lift us both to the 6th floor? She looked down, sorry, but I can't make myself float that long. Only a couple seconds at most. Izuku smiled, no worries. We'll just have to work our way up, then. Uraraka made her partner float so he could climb to the second-story window and carefully slide it open. She then jumped with the spring-loaded heels in her boots and grabbed his hand, getting pulled up onto solid ground. Izuku activated his communicator and whispered, "These mics are super sensitive, so they should pick up our voices, even when we're quiet. This way we can avoid making loud sounds." Uraraka nodded and activated hers as well. "Can you see if Ida or Bakugo have moved at all?" Izuku reactivated his Sharingan. "They're still up there. They kinda look like they're arguing, though." "No doubt because of Kaken." Uraraka smiled again, her infectious can-do attitude lightening the tense air. "Then we need to move. Let's go." The hero team quietly worked their way up to the third floor, making heavy use of the supplied blueprints to navigate the maze-like corridors and halls. "Any change?" Uraraka asked. Izuku checked again, but paled. "It's only Ida. It's only been a few minutes." "What happened?" Uraraka's heart quickened. "Where's Bakugo?" "I'm looking." Izuku quickly scanned the building. "Where is he? Where is he? Where? WH. Uraraka, get down." Izuku practically tackled his partner, just in time to avoid Bakugo's swing around the corner and unleash a sizable explosion. "DKU." Uraraka groaned as she sat up but gasped at the sight of Deku's torn mask and slightly red skin. "Deku. Are you alright?" He nodded. "I'm fine. You should try to get to Ida. He's probably standing guard of the bomb. I knew Kaken would come for me, so I'll stay behind to stall him." Bakugo grinned maliciously. "Nice dodging, Deku, but don't get ahead of yourself." Uraraka wanted to protest, but she remembered the fire in his eyes when they were waiting to enter. "Got it. Keep me posted." She ran towards the stairs to the fourth floor. Like Izuku predicted, Bakugo didn't even move to stop her, much less glance in her direction. Instead, he was transfixed on Izuku's glowing red eyes, the tomos slowly ceasing their rotation. "That's your quirk, huh, Deku? Doesn't matter. It's still nothing compared to me." The spiky-haired redhead protested, "A sneak attack. Bakugo's so unmanly." The pink girl laughed, "But man, that Midori sure can dodge. No surprise, though. He was pretty acrobatic yesterday." Yaoyorozu shook her head, but he sent away Uraraka despite their strength in numbers. "Does he have a plan?" All Might instinctively gripped his microphone tighter as he saw the scene unfold. "Young Midoriya, I know how much this means to you, but turning this exercise into a grudge match is bound to get you hurt." Bakugo charged at Izuku, swinging his right arm in a mighty haymaker. "Since One for All could kill him and I don't have the time I need to regulate it, I need to rely on my base strength. Normally, I'd only be able to flip him, but with my Sharingan. Kaken, I know from analyzing the heroes I think are awesome, that dash." Izuku dashed forward and seized Bakugo's arm, securely locking his opponent's bicep against his own chest. "You always lead with a right hook." Izuku rotated his hips slightly, pulling Bakugo with him. Then, he used the narrow corridor to his advantage by pushing off with his foot against the wall behind him. This sent him and Bakugo into the wall in front of Izuku, where he made sure that his shoulder thoroughly sandwiched Bakugo's stomach with the concrete. Bakugo coughed, completely winded. Kaken stunned. "Let's keep this up." Izuku delivered a few strong punches to Bakugo's jaw and temple before seizing his tank top and flipping Bakugo over his shoulder. However, at the last moment, Izuku jumped into the flip, speeding it up slightly, but also adding Izuku's own weight onto the attack, with Bakugo once again sandwiched between his childhood friend and a hard place. Izuku scrambled up and took a few deep breaths, winded at his own onslaught. He watched Bakugo cough and groan, his face curled into an even more impressive scowl. "Kaken, I told you someone said I could be a hero. Well now, someone else told me something just as important. From now on, I'm the Deku that never gives up. Deku." Bakugo groaned weakly. All Might's jaw was on the floor. "Man, young Midoriya, you are seriously awesome." The redhead was laughing. "Holy crap. That was one of the manliest things I've ever seen." The boy with the big mouth and cylindrical elbows chuckled too. "That was pretty cool." However, the frog girl stared curiously, but Bakugo doesn't look all that hurt. Izuku regained his breath. "Kaken, I know I said I didn't want to get in your way, but..." He grabbed his fallen friend's arm and pulled it up, placing his red shoe over the bear's shoulder in a hold. I take it back. In this hold, I can easily dislocate Kaken's arm and then he can't fire explosions from it. It's a little brutal, but without being able to control one for all, it's the best I can do. However, he felt the arm shift slightly and before Izuku knew it, he was sent flying back a dozen feet, his chest burning. You sure love monologuing, dumbass. While his opponent struggled to stand, Bakugo got up, his face positively seething with rage. So, Deku, you think you're at my level? Don't make me laugh. Bakugo fired another explosion towards Izuku, sending the smaller boy back a few feet with some fresh burns. You and I aren't even playing the same game, damn it. Uraraka tiptoed to the nearest column, peering out slowly behind her to watch as Ida stood guard in front of the black and red papier-mâché bomb. For the seemingly dozenth time, she heard the muffled boom off Bakugo's quirk on the third floor. I hope Deku's okay. It sounds really nasty down there. Ida yelled into his communicator, Bakugo. What's going on? Bakugo? Ida growled in frustration, darn him. Running off on his own to confront them. But perhaps, maybe that's just how he embodies the role of a villain. Ida rubbed his chin, or at least the chin of his helmet, while Uraraka silently laughed nervously. I think Ida is trying to find meaning where there isn't any. The armored speedster stood up and tall and exclaimed, if that's the case, then I must similarly adopt a villain's persona. MWA ha ha ha. The overzealous laugh was too much and Uraraka burst out laughing, much to her later chagrin. Oh. Uraraka. It appears you slipped past my henchman's defenses. But no matter. I, a villain, will end your reign of goodness and joy today. MWA ha ha ha. Uraraka couldn't help but burst out laughing again, but quickly composed herself. I gave myself up. I'll have to do my best to hit him with my quirk or at least stall him until Deku gets here. Uraraka took off at a run, madly charging the bomb. However, Ida quickly picked it up and zoomed to the other end of the room, haha. Sorry, Uraraka, but you'll have to be faster than that. Dang it. I can't get close to him without him speeding off. Deku's notes mentioned something about gears, but, I got it. With that, Uraraka charged Ida again. Izuku gasped for breath, hiding behind a wall as Bakugo searched for him. This is crazy. I can't get any openings on him if he keeps using his explosions to block my line of sight. Deku. Bakugo taunted, come on. I thought you said you never give up. Izuku grit his teeth. I want to look for him, but there's still 7 minutes left and I only have 4 or 5 minutes on my Sharingan. I need more time to recharge before I found you. Bakugo roared as he popped out from another hallway about 20 feet away. Crap. Sharingan. Izuku cried as he readied himself for the inevitable onslaught. Bakugo charged but propelled himself up and over Izuku with a series of 3 quick explosions. That was too fast for the Sharingan. And he's changing his style on the fly, so my old notes are useless. Get away, get away. Izuku made a desperate attempt to jump forward, away from his assailant, but felt a white-hot burn as Bakugo fired another explosion right at his back. Then, while he was still down from the pain, Bakugo struck Izuku with his right gauntlet. Here's that hook you told me so much about, Deku. The greenette fell to the ground, pain echoing throughout his body. I need to use one for all. I can't let myself lose to Kaken. Not this time. Izuku started charging his second quirk, feeling that familiar rush of power. He looked at his gloved hand, the white fabric faintly glowing from the energy beneath. Kaken's coming, no time to control the output. I'll focus it all in my palm to minimize the damage and use a Texas Smash to push him away. Bakugo growled, what? Still think you're so much better than me? Show me that power, damn it. He prepared to fire another explosion at the fallen Izuku's back, only for the latter to turn quickly and hold out his hand. Bakugo suddenly realized he'd been baited once he saw the hand glow brightly, despite the glove covering it. Shit! Bakugo held his left forearm up to defend just in time for Izuku to hit him with a palm strike. Texas Smash. Izuku fully concentrated one for all into his right palm and pushed it with all his might. The glove immediately ripped apart, electricity swarming Izuku's hand. Bakugo paled as his gauntlet shook violently, lightning arcing from his opponent's hand and painfully shocking the former. Then, the gauntlet burst open and the incredible wind pressure from Izuku's attack pushed Bakugo into the wall across the hall, cracking the concrete. Izuku smiled, but quickly clutched his hand in pain, the top layer of his palm's epidermis completely ripped away. I should run, this is my chance. Izuku turned away from his former friend but didn't move any further. His hands were shaking, and not from the pain. I don't want to run anymore. He looked back at Bakugo, who was slowly getting up, his left arm bleeding and small burn marks littered across his body from One for All's electricity. I need to finish this. Kaken. Bakugo looked up and grit his teeth. Izuku steeled himself, I'm not going to run. You're right, I said I wouldn't give up, so I'm gonna stay and finish this. Bakugo growled, you damn nerd. I'm going to flatten you. They began running at each other, but then Izuku's communicator rang out, Deku. Are you okay? Oh no. I've been completely ignoring Uraraka. And I practically forgot this is just a test. But that gives me an idea. Izuku reached into one of his pouches with his left hand and slid on the ground, managing to evade Bakugo's right hook. Throw it, there. He threw the object over his shoulder, watched it ricochet off of the ceiling and then bounce off of the floor until it was within reach. Izuku quickly grabbed it with his right hand and crossed his arms. Captured. Bakugo stopped the explosion he was about to unleash, what? He looked down and nearly screamed upon seeing a white strip of tape extend from Deku's left hand, reach around his back, and then emerge into Deku's right hand. Izuku had thrown the roll of tape while holding one end of it. Then, he grabbed the roll after using the Sharingan to throw it around Bakugo and pulled it with his free hand. Bakugo didn't move for a while, but growled, Deku. The viewing center was silent as could be, the only sound being All Might chanting, yes, as quietly as he could, which was, surprisingly, very quiet. Finally, the yellow-haired guy spoke, holy shit. Midoriya's a ninja. The frog girl riveted, in agreement, his accuracy with the capture tape is impressive. Even Yaoyorozu, the cold analytic she was, seemed shocked silent at that maneuver. All Might eventually gathered his bearings and announced, Katsuki Bakugo has been captured. Please exit the building. He smiled proudly. Young Midoriya, it seems you've finally managed to stand and shout, I am here, to your rival. Young Bakugo certainly can't ignore this. Uraraka cheered at the announcement from All Might, yes. He did it. Ida, while disappointed in his teammate, inwardly smiled that his new friend managed to defeat his tormentor. However, he had a bigger problem right now. Smart move, Uraraka. Using capture tape to trap me within a perimeter. True to his word, the gravity heroine had wrapped capture tape all around the columns, essentially forcing Ida to remain within the rectangular area to avoid being disqualified. Uraraka smiled. I really ought to thank Deku for letting me see his notes. I could leap over the tape, but not with the bomb weighing me down. Maybe in second gear, but there's not enough space to enter it. I just need to focus on moving it away from her for as long as possible in whatever area I have. Ida repeatedly dodged her movements, but even he was getting tired. Uraraka, on the other hand, had been trying to move much faster than she was physically able to for an extended period of time and looked ready to drop. Uraraka. Deku's whispered voice appeared from her communicator. She immediately perked up, Deku. You alright? I'm fine. I'm actually by the stairs right now. From what I can see, if you can get on the other side of the room, I can try to distract Ida and give you the chance to grab the bomb. Uraraka smiled, excited at the prospect and immediately got into position, directly adjacent from the entrance, with Ida and the nuke in between. Then her partner quietly snuck out from the stairway and Uraraka completely forgot the plan, Deku. He looked terrible. His right hand was bleeding badly, and his suit was basically destroyed. And his body was covered in ugly red burns. Huh? Midoriya. Ida perked up and pivoted, nearly spitting up, what? Midoriya, are you alright? Shaking herself off of the shock of seeing her battered friend, she prepared herself. That's the signal, Uraraka jumped, her spring heels giving her the extra bounce she needed. Unfortunately, she waited too long to jump and Ida managed to regain his bearings enough to push the bomb away. Uraraka cursed herself silently as she landed and made a mad dash for the bomb. Deku watched the plan fall apart and without thinking, cocked his left arm back. Uraraka, jump forward. Without even thinking, she complied and used her boots to propel herself forward. Ida saw this and tried to run, only to be knocked backwards by an incredible gust of wind. Midoriya had launched a full-force punch into the space between Ida and Uraraka, creating a wave of air pressure. The wall across Izuku shattered under the force of the punch, as did the wall of the building next door. Ida marveled at the power on display. Incredible. Then Uraraka cried, retrieved. All Might smiled as he announced the hero team's victory, and with only 8 seconds left on the clock, too, but seeing his pupil's battered form filled him with guilt. Perhaps I could have stopped the battle earlier, but... Izuku may have been exhausted and bloody, but he was smiling. Even as he lay on a stretcher to be carried by the UA medical bots to Recovery Girl, he was smiling. Sure, tears of pain were filling his eyes, but All Might was sure there were some happy tears too. Bakugo, on the other hand, was stone silent as he left for the nurse's office, his arm hanging bare despite Yaoyorozu's offering of bandages. All Might cleared his throat as the class settled down from the excitement of the first match. Now, can anyone tell me the MVP of this match? The pink girl raised her hand. Oh. Pick me, sensei. The blue and red blonde chuckled at her enthusiasm. Yes, young Ishido. Midori. He beat Bakugo and then used that awesome punch to stop Ida. All Might smiled that his pupil was getting some recognition but shook his head. Unfortunately not. Any other takers? Yaoyorozu raised her hand, both Uraraka and Ida. All Might sensei. Oh. Care to explain? She elaborated. Bakugo let a personal vendetta get in the way. He didn't even try to stop Uraraka from escaping. Midoriya also fell victim to this, but also injured himself twice and caused severe damage to the building and its adjacent one. In a real situation, that would have been catastrophic. Ida and Uraraka both made mistakes but remained true to their goals. Uraraka gave her position up but restricted Ida's movements with the tape. Ida got distracted near the end, but still kept the bomb away. Ahem. All Might was taken aback by the analytical skills on the number 1 student, WL said. I would only add that Ida fully embodied his role more so than any of the others. Yaoyorozu bowed slightly. Apologies for not picking up on that. As fellow students, it's important we recognize each other's strengths and weaknesses so that we may support each other better. All Might's sweat dropped. So sincere. Anyways, now let's get on to the next battle. Bakugo silently returned at some point, sporting a fresh bandage around his arm. He glowered, thinking about how his match had went. Of course, that all went out the window once he saw Team B. A few hours later. Yeesh, keep getting injured like this and forget about being the next symbol of peace, you won't even make it past the sports festival. Recovery Girl chastised her young patient. Izuku bowed apologetically. Sorry, Recovery Girl. I really tried not to, today. She sighed and sat back in her chair. I suppose you're still new at this, but try to learn to control one for all as soon as possible. You'll be a better hero for it anyways. She smiled slightly, though, based on Mr. Bakugo's injuries, I'd say you gave close to what you got. Izuku blushed slightly. Was Keikaken okay? Recovery Girl smiled at the compassionate inquiry. Yes, he was fine. Actually, I sent him back a little after you arrived. Too bad you were passed out. He almost looked surprised to see you. She laughed lightheartedly, but Izuku was left perplexed. Kaken looked worried. The youthful heroine shrugged. I don't know the boy well enough to interpret his facial expressions, but it looked not angry, if that helps. Why? Izuku's eyes lit up. May I be excused? Recovery Girl cocked her head at the sudden request, but nodded. You slept through most of your afternoon class and it's probably over by now, so sure. Just be sure to take it easy tonight and come by early tomorrow so I can finish healing you. Izuku quickly changed into his uniform, leaving his jacket off due to the sling on his right arm. He then packed his, unfortunately ruined, costume into the suitcase for the support company and headed back to class. Unfortunately for him, Izuku had apparently impressed his classmates. So the minute he opened the door, he came face to face with any lifelong introvert's worst nightmare, loud people. Hey, Midori is back. The muscular guy with oversized lips walked up and clapped a startled Izuku on the shoulder, the left one, luckily. I'm Sato. That was one seriously sweet fight, bro. The spiky redhead was next. Dude, that was the manliest thing I've seen since we've gotten here. I'm Kirishima. Good to meet you. Izuku's sweat dropped. We've only been here for 2 days. The pink girl popped in. Midori. You were so cool. That one flip you used on Bakugo was seriously awesome. We should definitely break dance sometime. Is that a common pastime? She tapped her chin and perked up. Oh, I'm Mina, by the way. Mina Ashido. Izuku laughed nervously. It's nice to meet you three. Did they stay after to see me? Kirishima noticed the suitcase in his hands. Oh, let me get that. He grabbed it without even waiting for a response and placed it back on the still extended shelf. Oh. Thanks, Kirishima. The redhead waved his hands. It's nothing. Glad to help. At that moment, the yellow-haired guy walked in with Uraraka, both laden with textbooks. You know, we should go out sometime. What's your favorite food? Uraraka looked up and thought, I like mochi, Deku. Midway through her sentence, she noticed her bandaged friend and ran over after adding her books to the other guy's pile, causing the poor teen to fall over. Are you okay to move around? Recovery girl didn't heal you? Izuku blushed. She's always so close. And no, she did. I just didn't have enough stamina for her to finish. He then noticed the suspicious absence of the person he most wanted to talk to. Hey, where's Kaken? The yellow-haired one spoke from under the books. Bakugo? He left a couple minutes ago. I'm Denki Kaminari, by the way. Nice to dash. Dude, he's gone. Sato interrupted. Kaminari just groaned. Of course he is. Bakugo was nearly at the gate when he heard a gratingly loud voice. Kaken. He turned in a huff in time to see Izuku run down the front steps, his right arm kept in a tight sling close to his chest. What do you want, Deku? If you came to gloat, you really should wait until your arm's healed. Izuku shook his head. I wanted to tell you that today. It's my loss. This made the explosive teen pause. The fuck are you on about? The brunette looked down. If it wasn't an exam, there's no way I could have won. Even if I used my quirk's full power, you probably would have avoided it and then I'd be too injured to fight. That's why. Izuku looked Bakugo straight in the eyes. I don't want this kind of a win. I want to beat you fair and square. Bakugo was silent, but growled after a moment. Damn it. Damn it. You're still looking down on me? You? Always trying to help. I can do thing myself, damn it. I don't need your pity. I'll beat you and that half-and-half bastard all on my own. Izuku shook his head. That's not it. Then why are you always doing this kind of shit? No matter how much I tell you to fuck off, you won't listen. You think you're that much better than me? Me? Izuku yelled out. It's because I'm jealous of you. This finally shut Bakugo up. The former continued. All my life, I saw how amazing you were. And I just wanted to be like you. Even when you were an ass, I still wanted to have your motivation and power. And then, I got this quirk and I thought I could finally be like you. But I still don't know how to use it. Izuku looked at Bakugo, trying to convey everything he felt, but that's why, I'm going to make this borrowed power my own and defeat you with it. I'm going to show you that I can surpass you. He felt a slight itch in his eyes, but ignored it, stealing his gaze. Bakugo stared silently at Izuku and he could practically feel the sincerity behind that statement. He remembered all the beatings he and his henchmen gave the kid, all the insults he threw, the threats. Yet, Deku didn't give up. And now, he was telling him that it was all to prove that they could be equal. The ashy blonde turned around and loosened his facial expression. He started walking, but commented, today's a draw. You're nowhere a threat to me, so you better get to work. One day, we're gonna settle this. Deku was taken aback, but nodded and cried, you got it. Bakugo didn't respond, but as he walked to the station, he recalled one of Izuku's phrased. Borrowed power. At the same time, Izuku was met by a surprise guest, young Midoriya. He nearly spat, All Might. The number one hero laughed merrily. I couldn't help but overhear you and young Bakugo talk. I must say, it seems you really got through to him. Though, why you turned on your Sharingan, I don't know. Izuku raised an eyebrow before realizing his quirk was, indeed, active. Wah. I don't remember turning it on. Weird. He deactivated it. All Might shrugged before continuing, however, I was shocked to hear you reveal one for all to him. Huh. I didn't dash, he remembered what he said, WAH. I'm so sorry, All Might Sensei. Please accept my apologies. I'm sorry. He bowed repeatedly and deeply, outshining even Ida. All Might stopped him with a light chop. Luckily, he seems not to have noticed, but you must be more careful in the future. One for all is a carefully guarded secret for good reason. Izuku looked down. Sorry, All Might. I just wanted to be sincere with him. All Might nodded understandingly. It's fine. I understand your intentions. And cheer up. I think you really got through to him. All Might smiled at his student, earning one in return. Oh, by the way, how are your injuries? Izuku gestured to his arm. They're fine. My broken bone got set, but there's still a few small fractures that Recovery Girl couldn't heal. And my hand is still a bit sensitive. All Might nodded. Yes, I noticed you didn't regulate your power output like you did with Aizawa. Why not? Izuku sighed. It takes so long, even with the Sharingan to help me. Against someone as fast as Kaken, I couldn't even breathe, much less focus on that. The older man nodded understandingly before snapping his fingers. Don't ask questions, but I want you to focus one for all in your left arm. Shoot for 3%. I think your body should be able to handle that comfortably. Izuku raised an eyebrow, but complied, using his Sharingan to gauge his power output. Oh okay. I have it around 3%. Now what? All Might grinned. Now, you need to learn how it feels. Huh? He elaborated. You said that using your Sharingan to help regulate your output takes too long. So instead, use it to train yourself to get used to the feel of 3%. Then, you'll be able to call upon it without even thinking about it. Izuku grinned. Oh yeah. He focused on the energy circulating in his arm, the power he felt. Then he deactivated both quirks before recharging one for all back to what he thought was 3%. Activating his Sharingan to check and, it's not even close. Izuku groaned at the massive overshot. All Might chuckled. If it were easy, then anyone could do it. Just keep practicing. First learn to feel the output and then focus on speeding it up. Anyways, it's late and you don't want to keep your mother waiting. Best be off. Izuku nodded and left for the station. After recuperating some stamina with a nap on the train, he arrived at his home, much to his mother's worry once she saw his arm. Overall, his evening was rather peaceful, especially compared to the day he had. However, only a block away, two men were panicking in the streets. Or, at least, one of them was. Damn it, Hojo. Where is she? If we can't find her, we're gonna get our asses handed to us. A young man with long light hair and a beak-shaped black mask over his mouth spoke. His partner, a bald man with shadowed eyes and a face obscured by a light mask, responded, Calm, Toya. The boss will understand. And it's not like she'll have anywhere to go. This is a war of attrition. Toya shook his head wildly. Nah, man. We're gonna get reset for sure. I don't wanna get reset. I like my body. Hojo sighed. Truth be told, I do have some back pain. Maybe a reset wouldn't be the worst thing. While they bickered back and forth, they missed a shivering child hiding under a dumpster by a certain apartment complex, her white hair so caked with dirt it appeared black and her horn painfully shoved against the asphalt. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.